Hey guys, we're doing things a little bit differently today. Let's start here. Lake Mungo is a challenging, terrifying film that feels hauntingly real and well before its time, but it shortchanges itself by undermining some of its scarier moments. If that sounds even remotely interesting to you, go watch it right now. As of the time this video is posted, it's still included with Amazon Prime in the US, and I've never had another viewing experience like the first time I watched this movie. Okay, last chance. Full spoilers for Lake Mungo follow. It's hard to describe the feelings I had when I first watched this movie, especially the first half. The atmosphere of the film feels so oppressive and dark in a way that's more tangible and realistic than any horror movie I've ever seen. But that feeling didn't stick with me the whole time. Here's some quick background. Lake Mungo is an Australian film, and it was released in 2008 to some critical acclaim while being a near-complete financial failure. The movie has gained a sort of cult following in recent years. Popular horror director and personal hero Mike Flanagan tweeted, "Lake Mungo is one of my all-time favorites. I adore this movie. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor." So we know it's good. I also know that other videos have done a good job summarizing and explaining Lake Mungo, so we're not going to focus on that today. Instead, I want to discuss the film's biggest twists and why some of them are extremely successful, while one is not. That does require a bit of setup, so here's the plot at 30,000 feet. The entire film is presented in an understated, mockumentary style. We're told that Alice Palmer, a seemingly normal 16-year-old girl, drowned while swimming with her family near a dam. Through interviews with friends, family, and coworkers, we gradually learn that Alice's life was less than perfect, and that she was keeping secrets from everyone in her life. Even more intriguing is the fact that Alice seemed to know her death was coming, but more on that later. Alice's death is obviously difficult for her family, and they all cope with the loss in different ways. Alice's brother, Matthew, appears to capture footage of her ghost in and around their home. Her father has heart-wrenching dreams about her, and her mother consults with a psychic named Ray Kamini, whose credibility is dubious at best. So that's the basic setup. The family wants closure, and Alice's mother and brother seem like they'll do just about anything to get it. This brings us to our first twist. The footage is fake. One of the most haunting aspects of the early part of this film comes from the terrifying, low-res footage and pictures captured by Matthew that appear to show Alice's ghost present in and around the family home. Combined with incredibly unsettling music and editing that lingers on the most off-putting images for far longer than the viewer might like, these moments had me scared out of my mind when I first watched the movie. I'm scared now just thinking about it. So you can imagine my dismay when it's revealed that all of the footage is fake. It's explained that Matthew initially fabricated the pictures so that Alice's body could be exhumed, and their mother could be freed from her guilt and uncertainty about not going along to identify Alice's body. This plan does have a sort of twisted logic to it, but it perpetuates the family's mourning and ultimately doesn't pan out because the dead body really does belong to Alice. It's also never clear why Matthew kept making fake footage after her body was exhumed, but I'll tell you why it really gets to me. I have a few criteria that I look for in any successful horror movie twist. It has to be surprising. Maybe the twist was hinted at, but it should never seem obvious until after it happened. It also has to be devastating and/or terrifying, and it has to drive the plot forward in some way. As you've probably noticed, this twist doesn't fulfill any of those criteria. The reveal is undeniably devastating to Alice's parents, but as a viewer, it was a completely different experience. It's common to be uncertain about what's fake or real in a horror movie, so it's not the biggest surprise that it was all made up. But the twist stops the film in its tracks. It's so abrupt, and it cancels out just about everything that makes the first part of the film interesting to me. I'm really not exaggerating when I say that the first twist almost made me stop watching the first time I saw the movie. Luckily, the film does eventually regain its footing, which brings us to twist number 2, the cell phone footage. Alright, this is a pretty good one. It's revealed that Alice's friends noticed her acting very strange on a school trip to Lake Mungo shortly before her death. We were previously told that she returned from that trip without her phone and other personal belongings that were very important to her. Alice's friends provide a phone video showing Alice burying something near the base of a tree. The family then goes to that exact spot and digs up her phone and other belongings. This leads to the single scariest moment in the entire film. The footage from Alice's phone is blurry and distant at first, but it shows the slow approach of her bloated corpse while she's still alive. This still scares me. I don't want to look at this face anymore. End the scene. This scene is surprising, obviously devastating, and it not only drives the plot forward, it also reinforces what we've been hearing for the whole film to this point. Alice knew she was going to die. Alice's realistic nightmares, combined with the experience at Lake Mungo, took her to a place of despair and intense loneliness. In a sense, she had already begun to die. Alice's family is disturbed by the cell phone video, but they ultimately find peace in knowing more about the events leading up to Alice's death. They return home with a sense of closure and conclude that Alice has moved on completely. The family then decides to move into a new house. Case closed, right? This brings us to our final twist. Alice isn't gone. One of the smaller reveals in the film is that Alice had also consulted with psychic Ray Kamini long before her mother did. Ray kept this from the family due to honoring her request for confidentiality, which seems like a pretty bad excuse given the circumstances. Alice told Ray that she had a feeling she was going to die soon, and Ray had her do the same visualization exercise I mentioned earlier, where she pictured herself walking through the family's home. At the end of the film, the mother goes through the visualization exercise again and concludes that Alice isn't in the home anymore. But we're also shown clips from Alice's prior session where she describes her mother walking into her room, but this time her mother doesn't see her. In short, Alice isn't gone and her family has left her. She started to die while she was still living, and now she's partly alive, even in her death. On its own, this is a fantastic reveal that feels like a punch in the gut. It's one of the more compelling and sad reveals I've ever seen. Shout out to The Haunting of Hill House for my other top contender. To drive this point home, the very end of the movie and the credits include numerous clips and images proving that Alice really was there, just not in the places the viewers or the family had looked before. But that doesn't entirely work for me. As I mentioned, the first reveal centered around the fact that Alice's brother faked the footage of her, so we've already seen that ghostly images can be fabricated. Of course, the images shown at the end of the film would be harder to create, and it's clear that we're meant to believe it's all real this time. This creates a minor dilemma. Is the blurry footage still scary the second time around? Not to mention, I'm no detective, but I did see this twist coming, and I specifically remember noticing Alice in the window in the picture that was taken of the family in their backyard. Lake Mungo is an undeniably great horror movie, even though one or two questionable decisions make the film stumble in the second act and take just a little bit of the air out of the film's haunting ending. I still can't discount how terrifying the cell phone footage is, not to mention the overlapping experiences with Ray Kamini's visualization exercises. These words from Alice's last session especially stick with me. I don't think she knows I'm here. It seems unlikely that director Joel Anderson will ever make another movie, considering that this film flopped financially. And I can live with that. This movie has taken enough sleep from me already. Thanks for watching. Let me know which movie I should cover next in the comments. I'm going to keep doing some videos on horror and some on other genres, so anything is up for consideration. Alright, just a few quick ones. A lot of people seem to think that Alice drowns in Lake Mungo, which isn't the case. I do think it's a little bit confusing that the body of water where she dies isn't really named, while Lake Mungo itself is only relevant for being a location. I don't think we actually see Lake Mungo itself in the movie. There's one more parallel between Alice and her mother's sessions with Ray. The mom states that she once awoke in the night and strongly felt that Alice was there, while Alice describes standing at the foot of her parents' bed. This seems way too perfect to be unintentional. Okay guys, sleep tight.